Okay, so I have a few things to talk about here, a few movies and shows, and I haven't done one of these in a little while. I actually did one um, a few weeks ago maybe, but I wasn't very happy with it, so I never uploaded it, and I put the stuff away. So I do have more stuff that I could talk about, but I don't know if I remember which ones it was. But at least I have some stuff that I've watched since then that will definitely be enough for one video. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about here is the show The Knick, and this is season 1, which I think I got one just to try it out. I got one copy or one issue of Entertainment Weekly, and they wrote about the Knick in that magazine, in that issue. And I thought it sounded interesting, and I looked forward to watching it, and it came out on Blu-ray for a good price, much sooner than I thought it would actually. Which I'm really happy about. And this show is about the sort of the birth of modern medicine, and it takes place in I think the year 1900 actually. So it's an interesting time. It does show you a pretty grim and bleak reality, and it's not a show that really romanticizes the past, if you will. I mean, it is. It's not a pessimistic show. Of course, it's about the progress of medicine, which is a good thing, but they show it in a pretty bleak and cold way. I mean, the way they portray reality is very real, if you will. I mean, say in one scene you have a pretty primitive type equipment. I mean, you know, electricity has recently been introduced, and there's some sort of equipment that takes advantage of that new invention, but it's not really that developed yet, and there's an accident. Someone tries to I think there's a fire that starts, and a nurse gets a bucket of water to put it out, but you know, the electricity travels, because I don't know what, something electrical started burning, and the electricity travels through the water and into the bucket and into her hands or something, and it kills her. So stuff like that happens, and so it's not an uplifting show, despite being about something ultimately good, of course. But which I do like that, though. It doesn't try to lure the viewer in by sort of romanticizing the whole reality of that. I mean, if we take a show such as Boardwalk Empire, which, I mean, I don't know what show to take as an example, but that seems reasonable, because that also, you know, takes place quite a long time ago. A few decades after this, but still, or 2 decades, and that revolves around the gangster people, and there are some gangsters in this show actually, believe it or not. It's not what it's about, obviously, but they do appear. And anyway, but that show, you might not really wanna be in that world, but you still kinda maybe tend to glorify some things when you watch shows like that. But this one, you really don't. You absolutely don't want to be there. It just seems horrible. And that made me not able to binge watch this show. I did watch, I mean, there are 10 episodes, and I watched them over the course of 2 weeks, I think, so not even one episode a day, just barely one a day. And so it's not one that I could binge watch, and it's not one that I imagine a lot of people binge watching, perhaps. But there's something about that I like. It really shows you how it was, I guess. Which I guess brings me to another thing, the historical accuracy. It seems to me that when people make these shows, historical shows, I mean, they're pretty nerdy. They're pretty well read. You know, they have done a lot of research. The showrunners and writers and stuff, so they know a lot about about historical accuracy. You would hope. I don't know if everything that is talked about and introduced, such as things you recognize, like the X-ray machine and like suction, like to remove blood and fluids or whatever when you operate, which you might not know from real life, but I'm sure you've seen it in like shows such as ER or maybe Grey's Anatomy, and they introduce things like that. And I don't know. And other things too that might not really have to do with medical advancement, but just things about everyday life in 1900. I don't know to what extent that is entirely historically accurate, but I'm sure it is, for the most part, and that is something I like too. But anyway, so you get to you get to see these advancements in modern medicine, and things you recognize that are introduced, and things, I mean, mistakes they make, and it's just very interesting to see. I mean, obviously it's a fiction show. It was filmed in 2000 whatever 13, 14, I don't know, but it feels like it happens in the year 1900, and it feels like you're watching the actual developments of back then. And that's a cool thing. I don't know, I just really like this show, and I'm looking forward to season 2. This ended in a really interesting way, so I can't wait to see what happens with that in season 2. I'm talking about the last shot now in particular, but then there are a few things, another few things that should be fun to follow up on. Anyway, I could talk more about this, but I've talked for 6 minutes now about this, or 5. Minus the intro, I guess. But anyway, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I do really recommend this. It was a great show. I'll just put it here. And then I said in my Christmas gifts video that I was gonna get back to this show, and I will. And beware of spoilers now. This is The Big C. The reason why I wanted to wait was partly because I didn't have too much time left on the camera, but also because I was gonna spoil things, and I just didn't feel like that was the right video for that. I don't know, but well, I mean, anyway. So The Big C, beware of spoilers. I'm gonna reveal what happens in the ending. Okay, so now you are aware of the spoilers, and the ending. It's not a surprise. I mean, Kathy dies. You know, she passes away from cancer, and the complete last season here. Only, I mean, the first 3 they've been slightly different in nature, and also in how the episodes look. Or I mean, they are 20-30 minute episodes, and this one only has 4 episodes, and they're about an hour each. So it's like 4 mini movies, and this one kind of shows you the oh god damn it, the deterioration that cancer does to you, and which it does to Kathy in this season. She gets better. She gets good news from Alan Alda's character. I love Alan Alda. He plays her doctor. He gets good news from her. She's like one of the very small percentages. Yeah, sorry, maybe I just can assume that the people who listen to this know because I spoil it, but I shouldn't assume that at all. This is about Laura Linney's character, yeah. And she suffers from. She tries to deal with her cancer basically with the help of her family and a psychiatrist and her own mind, of course. But anyway, and in sometime in this third season, she gets good news, but then, you know, of course, she does end up dying. It gets worse pretty quickly, and then things get worse until she dies. And this last season just kind of shows that she gets worse throughout the season, and it ends with her dying pretty, I don't know, matter of factly. I don't know. It's not. It's kind of dramatic, but she just kind of dies, and you expect it to go that way, and it's not a big surprise. It just kind of happens eventually, and then it's over. And it's, of course, I mean, it's the nature of the show also kind of changes, of course, because before it's been somewhat comedic. I mean, of course, it's a drama show, but it's also very comedic with you know, the things that goes on, some crazy family members, and Oliver Platt provides a lot of comedy, I think, and it is a comedy, but with a serious foundation, or a serious yeah, anyway. But in this one it kind of changes somewhat, and of course in favor of the dramatic tone, because that's very reasonable. And it's yeah, about her preparing for death, and it was, of course, different to watch this last season than the other 3. By the way, the reason why I don't have the first 2 is because I watched them back in the day. I downloaded them, and then I just never ended up getting the 3rd one, or I never ended up watching the 3rd one, and it took me a few years to get these 2, or got them for Christmas. But anyway, but they are, yeah, they were very much fun and enjoyable to watch, despite still having a serious topic, of course. But this one I can't really say that about. It was great, really good TV, really emotional, really well acted by Laura Linney. I mean, I hope she got some sort of award for this. I'm not sure if she did, but she deserves it. And I feel like more people should watch and talk about the show. Well, I mean, maybe they did. It's been over now for a couple of years, I guess. But anyway, I've talked about for 10 minutes about 2 titles, so I should probably round it up here and move on to the next one. But yeah, I can't say I enjoyed it. It was great, but it was more difficult to get through, of course. Then we got a great documentary which I just showed you yesterday in an unboxing, and now I'm back with it with this one. Bill Cunningham, New York. I wasn't really entirely sure what this was about. I said a fashion designer, and then I corrected that because I read here that it says photographer, and I should yeah, now I have of course seen it, and I can tell you it's about him. He's a street photographer. You can see him here on the street with his camera on his bike. Very idiosyncratic, an interesting character, Bill Cunningham, an 80-year-old man who, yeah, goes around on his bike and has been doing so for a long time. And he photographs people without really asking them if he can. He just kind of photographs people, and they don't really bring that up too much. I keep thinking of, what do these people think of this old man just running up to them, taking pictures? I mean, that's kind of... It does look a little creepy if you don't know what's going on, I have to say. Because he doesn't look like a professional, he just looks like a weird old man who takes pictures of people. There is one scene where 2 schoolgirls or whatever, they tell him to fuck off or I'll break that camera. And I do imagine a lot of people are reacting that way. Maybe not too many, but they do show you that, so he doesn't seem to worry too much about that. And I love that. I love that he just does his own thing. Yeah, and he has been doing his own thing for a long time, and he's such a happy character. He lives in New York, and he takes pictures of people in New York, and then he goes back to his editing base, whatever, and he puts together these collages, much like what you see here on the cover. Which I didn't think that this was a great cover at first, but then I realized, of course, it's because this is how his pages or whatever in the magazines look like. But I don't really think it really catches the eye, so maybe they should have gone with a different cover, because this documentary deserves a lot more attention. But like I said, just this happy guy, 80 years old, very healthy, seems like. I mean, he goes around on his bike and just in New York City among all the cars, and he talks about life and about his passion and his just unbridled passion or whatever. And well, anyway, yeah, it's great. I just love this. I love. Hopefully she won't call back. My mom just called. Sorry about that. This was yeah, it ends kind of oh, now I lost track. It ends kind of melancholy, in a fairly melancholic way. It puts a different spin to the whole thing. But it was just such a great feel-good movie for the most part, but it does end in a slightly sadder tone. I'm not gonna have time for too many in this one, but let's do one more here. Entourage the movie. I'm not sure why exactly they decided to make this movie, because it's just like the show. There's not a big difference in either look, to me anyway. Maybe the show was fairly cinematic as it was, but this just more or less looked like the show did, and it just felt like the show too. I'm not really I enjoyed it a lot, but it just I don't know, they made 8 seasons of a show and then they make a movie. I just thought that they had something that they were gonna round off the characters in a different way or whatever, but they just kind of continued, but with a movie. And I'm not sure exactly what the idea was, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed watching this. And yeah, if you like the show, I do recommend watching this movie. It was fun to revisit the characters. Okay, I have time for something else here. Okay, so let's just mention, unfortunately. Okay, so I thought I had 4 of them. Anyway, we got some Downton Abbey stuff here. Season 1 I put away, I guess. Well, it's somewhere around here. I'm not... Okay, it's right here, actually. Season 1, Season 2, Winter at Downton Abbey, and this one comes a little bit later, A Journey to the Highlands. I got these, and I just ended up stopping. I watched the first season, really enjoyed it, watched the second, or part of the second, and then of some reason I could not enjoy it as much. So I stopped watching it. I just couldn't get into it. I kept trying. I watched another episode, and didn't really feel it. Watch another one, didn't really feel it still. And unfortunately, I'm gonna leave the show. But I might get back to it in the future. I really liked the first one. Okay, now I have to round this off because yeah. Anyway, gonna call my mom back. I didn't have time for too many in this one, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one pretty soon. Okay, thank you for watching.